Hello, this is Colin Liddell, and this is the Shortpod, a brief and succinct podcast commenting on the events and issues of the day, and also a lazy man's way of writing an article. And today it is the 13th of March, 2026. We're about 10 days or so into Donald Trump's Iran war. This was a war that Donald Trump appears to have been bounced into or stampeded into by Israel. The story is that Israel was going to bomb Iran. The Iranians were expected to shoot back, and the Americans would be caught in the crossfire, looking a bit aimless and confused. And so Donald Trump decided that the better option was for the Americans to preempt the Iranian retaliatory attacks and join the Israeli strikes. So America is basically Israel's wingman. Because of this, the Americans have zero strategy, they have zero concept. They're changing their story every 4 or 5 minutes. One day you hear the war is about preventing the nuclear threat of Iran. The next day it's about regime change, and then it's not about regime change. There's talk of boots on the ground, there's talk of no boots on the ground, there's talk of total victory, blah 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 blah, and a lot of post-truth disinfo going off in every direction, really. In a way, America's information messaging is a bit like Iran's immediate response to the war. After they were attacked, they shot missiles off in all directions, attacking a lot of the Gulf states that are hosting American bases. Now, to a neutral, non-biased observer, this war is not unlike the 9/11 attacks on America in 2001, when the World Trade Center was brought down in a cloud of dust and the Pentagon was hit. This is essentially a grand terroristic strike. This was emphasized by the deaths of about 160 schoolgirls, in addition to much of the country's top leadership. Now, you might not like the Iranian regime, and in fact the Iranians don't seem to like the Iranian regime very much, but attacking it in this way and bombing the fuck out of Iran in this way was very much a terrorist 9/11 style attack by Israel and its ally. That's not to condone the Iranian regime's own terroristic acts against its own people. But getting caught up in a game of moral one-upmanship is not really what this is about. This is about American power versus non-American power. And what this has essentially devolved into is a power struggle or a kind of proxy war between America and China, except that China has a proxy and America doesn't. What the Chinese want, they want a weakened, divided, and confused America. And in the person of Donald Trump, they seem to have really hit the jackpot. Trump is weakening America, he's dividing America, and he's keeping it constantly off balance and confused. Now, when Trump originally became president, he served Russian and Chinese interests to begin with. He was an anti-neocon president, and then he transitioned from that into being this Gorbachev on steroids kind of figure that is essentially torching American soft power in every corner of the world and undermining America's rich network of alliances. So what the Chinese want is they want America to keep doing that, but they also want America to become visibly weak, visibly confused, and visibly divided. And Donald Trump is serving all of those functions as well. But this is still a game that could go in any possible direction. It's quite possible that in the weeks ahead, the Iranian regime becomes destabilized enough for an uprising to start. And if a revolution swept the mullahs out of power and a pro-Western, pro-American regime took its place, then you could claim this as a major geopolitical victory. But the chances of that happening remain medium to low, I think, especially because when the Iranian people did rise up several weeks ago, the Americans were caught on the hop and they were not able to offer any kind of substantial assistance, with the result that the uprising, such as it was essentially slaughtered and crushed by the Iranian government. So destabilizing and overthrowing the regime seems to be very unlikely unless the Americans are prepared to put boots on the ground. We know that the American pain threshold with body bags and dead Americans is extremely low. It took about 29 dead Americans to get them out of Somalia. If they got similar numbers in this war, that would really cool the ardor of the war hawk party in America. So based on that, it looks like the mullahs are probably going to hang on. And if they hang on, thanks to the terroristic nature of the American assault on Iran, they have been given the soft power, so to speak, the moral capital to hold the Straits of Hormuz to ransom. Before this attack, Iran shutting down the Straits of Hormuz would have been internationally unacceptable. But after this attack, after the deaths of 160 schoolgirls, after wiping out as many of the country's top leaders as they could in a blatant assassination strike, Iran feels morally emboldened enough and morally justified in the eyes of the world to start putting a bit of a squeeze on the Straits of Hormuz. Now, they're exporting their own oil, which the Americans may or may not shut down, but they are also deciding who else gets to use the Straits of Hormuz. Now, I would say that the Iranians are operating their policy in this war probably in cahoots with the Chinese. And what the Chinese want probably is not a total shutdown of the Straits, but they want enough of a shutdown to push up the oil price to a level where it politically undermines Donald Trump. This will then have two possible outcomes. Either Trump will be forced to raise the stakes, possibly by putting boots on the ground and thus increasing American casualties, or else we'll see prolonged higher gas prices in America, putting enormous pressure on Trump politically. As an added benefit to the anti-American, anti-Western forces in the world, the higher oil price is also helping Russia out. Their economy was teetering on the brink before this war was unleashed, and since these attacks, the Russians have started selling oil again to India and other countries. So they're making a lot of money out of this war. Their economy is enjoying something of a boost, and that will keep them going a bit longer. Meanwhile, European economies, the American economy, and of course the Chinese economy will all suffer from this reduced oil traffic. But a country like China can take the pain. They probably have a lot of oil in reserve. They can get oil from Russia, and they can even get oil from Iran unless America stops it. Meanwhile, in America, prices at the pump go up, and Americans can't handle the pain of that. So, unless the Iranian regime collapses in some way, which is a diminishing possibility, Trump will be forced to do the biggest taco of his life. He'll be forced to declare a fake victory and then retreat from the Gulf with his tail between his legs. And after all the expenditure and wastage of munitions, we'll go into a kind of quiet period. And during that quiet period, Iran will rebuild its military, and the Arab Gulf states will have a much more, let's say, nuanced view of the value of American protection. Over and out.